Stunning. Unbelievable. Just when I thought there would be no more ways to catch the Navy lying, they do it again. It is absolutely breathtaking, the hubris and the arrogance of these people, and their willingness to just slime and besmirch the lower ranks. It's infuriating, but it's never going to stand here. Today, the officer of the deck, the USS Fitzgerald, stood before a special court-martial and gave testimony and pled guilty to 1 count violating UCMJ. But in her testimony, she revealed a piece of information that absolutely destroys the Navy's narrative. And it was one simple statement. And I'm wondering if it was her way of trying to send us a message. Those of us who are paying attention. Because if you weren't paying attention, it wouldn't seem like much. But to those of us who are, it's huge. It's absolutely huge, and we're going to get to it. Now, this is the first, of course, we've seen that this officer has been identified. She was aboard the USS Ashland, LSD-48, amphibious dock ship. She got her surface warfare officer there in 2015. So she wasn't new. She had been a surface warfare officer for almost 2 years and main propulsion officer. So she knew a little bit about engines as well. Right from USNI here. Before a military judge, she pled guilty to 1 violation of Article 92 of the UCMJ. In her plea, she admitted that she violated Ship Commander Bryce Benson's standing orders several times during the overnight transit off the coast of Japan. Now, reading that, you would think, okay, well, yeah, this is this girl's fault. What they don't tell you is that Mr. Benson was on the bridge until 11 o'clock that night. The accident happened he was on the bridge till 2300. The next morning, 0130, is when the collision allegedly happened. And at 0030 hours, she did, in fact, notify him that there were issues with vessels. According to the Navy report, there would have been 6 or 7 separate times in that 2.5-hour period where she would have had to have woken the man up and notified him about what was going on. My question would then be, why the hell would have you gone to bed to begin with? He knew where he was going. In fact, it also states down here that she was under orders to keep the ship at a high rate of speed. 3 months reduced pay and a punitive reprimand. It gets better. Here's her signal. Wait till you hear this. Talks about here about she didn't rely enough on the officers on watch. And that the prosecution said being complacent was the standard on the USS Fitzgerald. We'll deal with that in a minute. Now, here's the gem she gave us. I'll never forget the coordinates, she told the judge. I spent 2 hours yelling it in a radio trying to get help. I spent 2 hours yelling it in a radio trying to get help. Wait a minute. Back up. How can that be true? See, she had the coordinates tattooed on her wrist. I would love to see that tattoo. I would really, really, really love to see that tattoo. Why is this huge? Well, let's go to the report. Actually, we're going to go to the supplemental. Remember, after the collision, 2 hours yelling it in a radio trying to get help. Well, what does the report say? This is official Navy report. Not some internet article. I'll put the link in the description. A lot of you have been here before. Just give me 1 second to get down to this chart, where they detail What happened? Now remember, 2 hours trying to get help. So collision at 1:30, yelling in a radio till 0330 hours. That's interesting. 0132, collision 0130. 132, Fitz sounds collision alarm. General quarters sounded by the DCA below decks. Commanding officer reported down 0150. 0200. Fitz makes initial report of collision at sea to Desron 15 via personal cell phone at approximately 0220. So who the hell would you have been trying to raise on radio for another hour and 10 minutes beyond that? Besides, there's never any report of any contact outside the vessel other than this. Why? Because they said everything got fried in the collision. The radio room got crushed, and everything below decks got soaked in seawater. So tell me, how in the hell could this commander have been, well, Lieutenant, been yelling in a radio for 2 hours? See, I personally believe her. I think this entire story they've cooked up with all this stuff here is a bunch of horse crap that they had to make up. They've probably interjected a few pieces of information here, but this is interesting. 0240, Fitz reports loss of communications and loss of propulsion. So that's interesting. The collision happens at 0130. They've lost all communications at 240. So why would she have been screaming in a radio for 2 hours? For 2 hours. Don't think that's something that she would have mistaken. I think this will be one of those events that she remembers for the rest of her life. And as far as this complacency being the order of the day aboard the Fitzgerald, well, let's see what this report says about that. After the collision, Fitzgerald sailors responded to the myriad damage control scenarios occurring throughout the ship. Flooding, structural damage, and reports of white smoke stressed the damage control organization. At the same time, efforts to restore power, propulsion, steering, and navigation continued. The crew of the Fitzgerald fought hard in the dark of night to save their ship. Ultimately, those damage control efforts and restoration processes succeeded in safely bringing Fitzgerald into port under her own power. Through their swift and, in many cases, complacent action... Or no, wait, I'm sorry. That's not complacent. What's that word? I'm sorry. Maybe we can look at it closer. What's that word? Yeah. Heroic actions. Members of the Fitzgerald crew saved lives. You don't just flip a switch from being complacent and lazy and untrained and derelict and dilatory to just, time to turn on the hero switch now. These guys were top-notch. These guys were the best in the fleet, and the Navy is trying to cook a story to cover their ass about something that happened that night they don't want to admit. And in case anybody wants to take issue with my saying they're lying in the report, I can show you how their report lies with itself. Okay, real quick. Fatigue, 8.4. And this is from the final report here now. The command leadership allowed the schedule of events preceding the collision to fatigue the crew. Is that so? Schedule of events preceding the collision to fatigue the crew. Okay, let's go down here. Now, this is 0600 the morning before they get off Liberty. 0900 nav briefing. 11:30 underway from pier. 12:10, 40 minutes later, they anchor. They stay anchored for 4 hours till 4:24. Helicopter deck landing quals. And that's pretty much it. And by 1:30 the next morning, So tell me how the preceding schedule of events fatigued the crew. Horse crap. It's baloney. This is the dumbest story I've ever seen in my life. Also, let me see if I can find this about how they didn't do watch standing duties on the port side or starboard side. Here we go. Watchstanders performing physical lookout duties did so only on Fitzgerald's left port side, not on the starboard side, where the 3 ships were present with risk of collision. Really? And then right in their own report, we go down here, and we've done this before. Thank you guys who've seen this for bearing with me. What do we find? Well, let's see. Watchstanders unsuccessfully attempt to initiate a radar track on the Crystal. Where's the Crystal? Starboard side. Fitzgerald, officer of the deck, plotted a radar track on vessel thought to be Crystal. Where would that be? Starboard side. And it says, on the starboard side right here. Watchstander, responsible for the immediate support of the officer of the deck, the junior officer of the deck, reported sighting Crystal. There's nor watch standing, starboard side. Officer of the deck, same thing. Once again, 0122. Junior officer of the deck does it again. I mean, seriously, how many times can these guys lie and think they're going to get away with it? It's ridiculous. I mean, and you got to look at the time separations here. 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. The commander of the ship had only been off the bridge for a couple of hours, and he had already been informed once. And let's see if I can find that. Here it is, 0034. 4 vessels passed down the port side, closest point of approach, 1,500 yards. The commanding officer was informed. That means he was awake and he heard it. No course and speed determinations were made for these vessels. Now, 0034, that occurs. When did he leave the bridge? 2300. So, were they lying in the up here? Or were they lying down here? Or were they lying on page 47 of this report, where they say they lost all communications an hour after the collision, but now the officer of the deck says that she was screaming into a radio for 2 hours? Just let me know which one they're lying about, just so that we can keep it straight. Because clearly they can't even keep their own lies straight. 0240, Fitz reports loss of communications, loss of propulsion. And in today's testimony, I spent 2 hours yelling it in a radio trying to get help. Busted. We're going to stay on this. Share this, like this. Subscribe if you want, but share this. Show people what they're trying to do to our sailors to keep their secret. Like, share, subscribe.